Hi, welcome to Transmissions from the Transgender Battleground. I'm Cat Lady 762, and as always, if you like this video, please consider hitting the little buttons to like, subscribe, and leave a comment. Also, please remember that all views expressed in my videos are those of myself, Cat Lady 762, and do not necessarily reflect those of Gender Dysphoria Alliance. This is part 2 of my videos on children with dysphoria. Specifically, I'm going to talk about the concept of social transition. As such, I want to put a couple caveats at the beginning here. One, I am only a transsexual adult who experienced dysphoria as a child, who eventually decided as an adult to treat that dysphoria through transition. I have no professional credentials to diagnose or treat anybody with dysphoria. Okay. Also, I want it stated so that I am being completely upfront that my views on social and medical transition for children and adolescents have completely changed over my time since my transition. I used to fully support both social and medical transition within the current guidelines. I no longer do so. So let's talk about social transition. But first, we have to understand what social transition actually is. Now, I have lots of trans activists that will tell me, well, Cat Lady, for children, a social transition is just allowing them to dress and act however they like. Well, I think that's a disingenuous view of what social transition is. Allowing a child, or anyone else, to dress and act however they like is simply allowing them to be, potentially, as gender nonconforming as they feel comfortable being. Allowing a male child to dress in typically female clothing is allowing them to be gender nonconforming. Allowing a male child to take up what are considered typically female hobbies or toys is being gender nonconforming. So what is actual social transition then? Social transition is when you actively make an effort to present yourself in a way to society so that the majority of people within most situations would assume you to be something other than your biological sex. So let's take two examples. Say you have a male child, and his name is William. And William likes to wear dresses and likes having their hair long. And as a parent, there's nothing wrong with letting your male child wear dresses or have long hair. I have nothing against allowing people to be as gender nonconforming as they want to be. In fact, I often wonder if I were allowed to have been as gender nonconforming as I wanted to be or naturally was as a child, if I would have adopted the idea of being transsexual at such an early age. But back to William. So William is a boy that likes to wear dresses and have long hair. They are gender nonconforming. But now let's say you have a female child and they want short hair. They want to wear boys' clothes. But you're also going to change that female child's name. Let's say maybe their name is Mary to James. And if anything is said, you're going to use pronouns or act in such a way so that people assume that your child is a little boy named James. So the difference is actively how you are presenting yourself to the majority of society. Now, I can give you a personal example. In college, I grew my hair out. As a result, a lot of times, if I was just in a simple, casual interaction with somebody, say at a grocery store or a restaurant, I would get called ma'am. Now, sometimes I would correct it, sometimes I didn't. But the difference was, it was not my intent for people to assume that I was a woman. It was not my intent for people to treat me as such. And I did not go out of my way to perpetuate that misconception. Now, why do I think that there is a difference between allowing a child to just be gender nonconforming and actually socially transitioning? A social transition gives the identity weight. It makes it real within the world. James, our socially transitioned female child, now has weight in the world as James. They are being actively perceived throughout their life as if they are a boy. Now, yes, as in my examples, it is common sometimes for gender nonconforming people to be mistaken as if they are the opposite sex. But that's really kind of different. And I think it is important when we consider the weight an identity is given. See, when I was a child, as I would imagine most children with dysphoria did or do, I had a made-up name for myself, but it was only a name that I knew. It was only something that was real to me. I used it when I wrote stories or when I was playing in my room with my toys. That identity did not exist to the rest of the world. To the rest of the world, I was a little boy. Now, we have this idea that it's perfectly okay to socially transition children. The fact of the matter is, the majority of children that socially transition eventually go on to puberty blockers and other forms of medical transition. Now, the activists and even a lot of the therapists and doctors would have you believe that that's just because we do such a great job of deciding who benefits from transition. Now, that could be, but I don't really think that's the case. I think what you really end up with is you have children that then have a very specific set of experiences. Now, take a male child that socially transitioned at, say, age 6, and they are now 11. What they've known for the last 5 years is how it is to be treated as if they are a girl within society. That's really all they've known, since most children have no real concept of life before the age of about 5. So all they've known is what it's like to be treated as a girl. And okay, they like it. That's fine. But they also really have no idea what it is like to be treated as a boy. And they will have no idea what it would be like to be treated as a man. And yeah, maybe they will be part of the very small minority for which transition ultimately is a good treatment. Or maybe if they had been allowed to experience growing up as a boy and life as a young adult male, maybe they would have found that they were not as uncomfortable with it as they thought they were. Maybe that dysphoria would have lessened over time. See, the thing is, we don't really know, because we have no way to really compare how any one individual ultimately will fare as far as their dysphoria goes with transition versus just letting their life progress naturally. You try and claim we get it right so often. And to some regard, it's comforting to think that that is what's happening. But the reality is we really don't know. We really don't know that a lot of these children would not outgrow this. Because one of the things that we do know is that it's harder to walk back some of the decisions that we've made. It's hard to turn back and say, I know you made all these changes for me when I was 6 because I thought I was a girl. But no, I really don't think I am. I'm not saying that it never happens, because it does. But it does become harder to do the longer you've been on this path. Once that identity solidifies, both for yourself, but also for society in general, it is so much harder to take that away. So that's why I don't think strictly a social transition is healthy for children. I don't think it is necessarily just a, harmless option. It's not just letting somebody explore and play around. It's giving weight to this. So that's going to be the end of part 2. Part 3, I think I'm going to talk about some of my personal experiences and also some of how I think the gender discourse is having maybe bad impacts on some of this as far as children are concerned. So, thank you, and stay tuned for part 3.